Our parallel session was attended by around 35 people. Those were registered immediately on registering to the main session. We have quite a nice short time to discuss, but we did have a really exclusive presentations. The men came from Italy, indeed, the country which possesses in Europe the biggest extent of the properties of cultural heritage. So it's not an accident. The first presentation, which was given by Emilia Schicitano from the Ministry of Culture and Heritage in Italy, sorry, Ministry of Culture and Activities, Ministry of Heritage and Activities, was focused on the museum's life and the challenges the Italian museums face. And it was basically talking about the experience of being too inertive and maybe close to the society, and very obviously needed to more open perception towards the visitor and the user. Mrs. Armenia told us about her private experience, how it was difficult to insist the curators of the museum, the managers of the museums, to become more open-minded and to really accept the need of hearing the visitor, hearing the customer who needs to recognize and to learn more about the heritage, about the properties, and that was not easy. And her conclusion was very open and very fair, which said that one of the curators in the Capodimonte Museum in Naples finally said that, yes, I am a snob, I recognize that. So curators, as an experts, always think that they understand the heritage best. But in fact, without the understanding and use of the community, it loses most of the effectivity and perspective. The second presentation was by Mr. Przemysław Niedźwiecki from Poland, from our neighbor country. He shortly introduced the main objects which were upgraded, historic objects and the new ones, which were built to develop cultural activities in the cities. And all those objects were evidencing about the very high and intensive work Poland did in marketing the culture and the cultural life in their cities. It's very important to stress that historic buildings were renovated, indeed restoration and then renovated, adapted to new uses, attracting the city's communities to new cultural life, creating the space for the new expression to get together and to show what they want to see in the future, but at the same time to use the properties which were standing for 100 years in their cities already. And that is very important to say that this experience evidences that maybe sometimes the cities doesn't care or not sufficiently notices the properties they possess and that needs to be revived and can having a second or next stage in their life also to bring something new to their communities in a social and economic sense. And that was evidenced also by the third presentation given by the Professor Luciano Capelloni, and that was a case about the historic slaughterhouse built in 1891 that functioned until the 1975. And the huge complex which was dedicated to build it to that rude function of slaughtering now was converted in the course of some 7 years, was converted into a multifunctional complex adapted to basically to the cultural needs of the Academy of Arts, of the university, of the initiative groups that deals with the modern or alternative economics and social cultural gatherings. And that complex evidences also about how the city centers can get and receive new capabilities and new even offer to the citizens by reviving the cultural properties and putting them to the right way of use and opening the new perspective not only for the buildings itself but also for the societies living around and societies and people living and visiting the cities. So, shortly to say and to summarize all those three presentations, though the evidence is about the variety of the perception and access opportunities to the cultural heritage, it should be stressed that, yes, cultural heritage remains the fundamental resource, both social and economic. Then the question open is how we properly treat and adopt it to make it workable for the contemporary needs. The question which was said in the morning session about how much or how little we should do to really make the best effect of the historic property remains open. These answers cannot be invented, universal answers. Each answer should be found on the particular spot, on the particular object. So the challenge is still in front of us. But looking back to all the presentations, we can really recognize that when either investing and taking into account the examples in Rome or in Poland, which we're presenting during the parallel session, we can really recognize that those are investments, not only subsidies, and quite substantial investments, talking in economic terms. That's why, talking about the heritage, we should at least start very carefully think about the need of collecting data, which was recognized in our first presentation, that museums in Italy doesn't much care about the collection of data about the visitors, about how efficiently museums are used, and what are the outcomes, social and economic in terms of the functioning of the museums. So, talking about the counting and accountability, we should recognize that the cultural sphere needs to invent, on the national level, maybe for the separate bigger objects, need to invent the indicators how to measure effectivity and consequences of the cultural life, consequences social and economic. So this is the question which remained open. We didn't have time, in fact, to get deeper into that. But this is what we still need to target and think about, talking about the heritage preservation, management and use. And to achieve that, we indeed should recognize that we permanently need to search for the innovative management methods. Because what we heard in the museum's presentation, in the cultural centers development in Poland, that innovative management is hopefully the most important tool to make the cultural life more visible, more understandable for the users, and making it better marketed, what is not sufficiently often done if talking about the cultural sphere. And indeed for that goal we need a strong political support. That is not always as strong as we heard yesterday about the cultural industries from Estonia, and then we had some presentation from Lithuania, which didn't inspire me at all, when seeing how two close little countries can differently access the question of cultural potentials from the political sphere. So indeed, and then having the political support, we need, as it was said by Vilma, sustainable financing. I don't believe that we can have it, because having no sustainable economic life, we cannot expect sustainable financing. But what we can achieve is sustainable social support. And that was evidenced in both of the presentations, pre-presentations we have had in our session. So what we need, and what was said in the presentation by Erminia Schicitano, was that we need to really more openly target the convention, Council of Europe's convention, framework convention of the heritage values to the society, which in fact talks basically about the social aspect, socialization of the cultural heritage affairs, cultural heritage management. So when talking about the conversion, use, adaptation and restoration, we should be more open-minded and not to close our vision on the technicalities and expert affairs, but openly start measure understand and interpret heritage preservation with the eye of economist, with the eye of a social researcher, and also with the IT expert and marketing expert. So those are very general summarizing points. Thank you for your attention.